Hey folks, some update on my Runequest role-playing and Glorantha adventures. I did not end up going to JexCon, the game store that was running all the board game stuff there. Never got back with me, so I didn't feel comfortable just kind of showing up. And I want to say I had something going on at home here anyway that made it just more difficult to try and pull off. So I did not go to JexCon, did not get to run anything there. I have, however, the RPG get together that the local game store was doing. I forgot to bring my Runequest stuff with me, so I went anyway just to talk to people. And instead of it being like a meet and greet and talk about different games we play and that kind of stuff, guys were showing up ready to run games. So I was sitting down at a table talking with a couple other guys about different stuff we're doing, and this fellow sits down and pulls out character sheets and starts handing them out. So we played Labyrinth Lord for a little bit. I had to take off before everybody was finished, but it was kind of cool. And he did a couple of game master techniques where he had a blank piece of paper and he was drawing out the environment. We're going through into a valley that's been blockaded, for lack of a better word, with a fortification across the front of it. And so he's drawing out the fortification, and now the valley goes back, and there are cave holes and the walls of the valley and that kind of thing. And I'm going, oh, that's cool. I'm gonna try and pick that up for certain things, give some environmental texture to adventures. But that local game store, I contacted later on saying, hey, I'm running this Runequest Quickstart thing for conventions and stuff. I'd like to do something similar at your store. When I get back from Gen Con, we can talk in depth about how to set it up, because what I would want to do is give people who visit the store plenty of lead time so I can actually show up knowing there's going to be people wanting to play. Better yet, a number of people who want to play. And if I have to run 2 sessions, I can run 2 sessions, that kind of thing. So that's in the future still. Gen Con is still in the future, but it looks like Chaosium was short on their Call of Cthulhu Game Master. So I'll be running a intro starter set for 7th edition Call of Cthulhu there as well, called the Necropolis. I've read through it once. I need to study more on that one for sure. But I'll be doing that, and I've got that plus 2 4-hour sessions of Runequest, and a 3rd Runequest on Saturday. All my games are on Friday except for the one that I have on Saturday. So that'd be cool. I'm putting my stuff together again, and because I took all those notes you saw from my last video, how I'd written on my notes and had arrows going places. So I've rearranged a lot of stuff and set that up so that it flows better from a narrative point of view from what I experienced running at Origins. So that's how the con stuff is going along. My best friend Ed, I mentioned him in one of my videos, is up for the weekend. He's a professor of psychology at BYU, and he was out here in DC delivering a paper. So he brought his wife out with him, and they did a bunch of DC stuff earlier. And this weekend he's down here, and he wants to play. He wants to play because he's normally the game master. And most of the stuff we've done together, he's been the game master, and we're talking years of stuff. He's been the game master, so he's always interested in playing. Last time he was out here was with his son Steven, and we didn't do Fancy Trip. We did a traveler-esque basic role-playing future world little scenario thing. So, and he thought that was fun. So he likes, he's getting back into trying to play and stuff. So he's always looking for that opportunity. When can we play? When can we play? So he and my buddy Grant, who's my DM here, came over the past 2 nights, and we've been doing the starter set scenario that was discussed in my first video. And I didn't really mention this in the other video, but when you've got fewer players, they usually go for the fighter types, and so they miss the smart guys, the guys that can speak and read different languages, the guys who can actually scan and spot hidden things and stuff. But they lucked out. They spotted the shaman out in the woods, and were able to actually convince him to help them go along with their little adventure, because the shaman guy, he's skittish about everything. He's a little crazy, and he's been hunted by spirits most of his life, and he's hiding from them and that kind of thing. But they help him put the spirit of the dead woman to rest, kind of thing, and take on another oath to go and complete these 3 things they need to do to put her soul at rest, which fall almost perfectly in line with the things that the clan chieftain's wife has designated them for them to do. And so they take off north, and there's this encounter with these critters that are chasing down one of the loose cattle. It's pretty, standard every time that happens. It's a matter of how much advance notice you get, how close you can get. And then there's, on the game master part, how many of these rock lizards am I going to throw at them? In my first game back in Origins, when I had the 2 guys, I think I had 4 of the rock lizards. 2 of them on the cow itself, and then 2 more chasing up after it. But for this session, I just had the 2 on it, and of course, Vasana, the bison cavalry woman, it was chosen to be one of the players, and just the charge attack, glance through the poor rock lizard, tears the leg right off, that kind of thing happens, and they go through those 2 pretty quick. He even remembered to have his animal do a headbutt once, and man, a buffalo headbutt does some real nasty damage too. So they weren't able really to calm the animal down, because herding skill or animal lore skill, but they do have healing potion and healing spells, so they're able to actually heal the cow up, and I allowed that to calm the animal down. And so they tied up to one of the zebras, because one of the players is zebras as his mount. And in Glorantha, that's the way it is, that horses aren't used in this cultural area as animals. They're not. They use high llamas, which are these 10-foot tall llamas. They use the bison, they use impalas, they use zebras, all these other different kinds of animals as mounts and that kind of thing. So it's just one of the flavors of the culture. So they got the shaman on their side, and they're going up north to the ruins, and they spot the guy that's hiding out there. The thing that nobody really understands about the guy who's hiding out in the ruins is the fact that he is crazy. He had a mental breakdown with the whole Idrima, the earth demon goddess, and all the things that Danikos, the bad guy's been doing. And so he's just kind of freaking out. And there's a mechanic in the game where the person with the lowest power, you roll against that every full turn to see if this crazy guy attacks or not. And they get into town, and first full turn I roll, sure enough, he does. He attacks. So he jumps out and attacks Vasana, and they just turn around and schwack, 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 he's down. And I'm trying to figure out what's going on. And there's a little thing about he jumps out, he's a wild, freaky guy kind of thing. And but there's actual insight skill that if somebody had, and I'm sure somebody in the party does, but neither of these 2 characters have, that could tell this guy, something's wrong with him. But one round, couple whacks, he's down. And then they get lost, and so they got to find their way. They reorient themselves. That wasn't too hard. And then they hear the cattle some more, so they go back up towards the center temple. And when they encounter the temple, one of the PCs who has a rune spell for flying wants to do that. He wants to fly up and go in over the top, because the top of the temple has been broken off over the years and that kind of thing, so it's open up to the sky. Well, the scenario with Danikos, the bad guy who's inside making sacrifices, is that usually there's a scuffle or something out front, so he hears that, and so he goes and he hides, and he's got a he's got like 3 or 4 spells that he casts off right off the bat to get ready. and he can come out a raging monster with these spells on him, right? Well, when the player, he's got 3 rune points, and when you cast a fly spell, your person can fly, plus you can carry with you 6 points of size, because everybody's got a size statistic, and the average is like 8 to 12. He's got 3 rune points, so he casts 1, which gives himself plus 6, and he casts the other 2 to give him a total, well, just 1 more, 2 points, which gives him a total 12 size he can carry. Vasana, the girl who's with him, the cavalry woman, she's a size 10. So he grabs her, and up they go, and they look over the top. And so I'm able to describe a little bit about what's going on. They can't see much detail because, they're like 60 feet or 50 feet in the air. So yeah, they see the altar there, and there's a guy there who's chanting, doing something. And then there's the big stone statue. On the altar is, a bull's head and some bones that are all shaped and arranged in front of that, and then there's the cow skin that's hanging off of one side. So obviously this guy's been sacrificing cattle, and obviously it's their cows, and so they're kind of upset about that. So they are trying to figure out, okay, do we just fly straight down and attack, or what are we doing? They decide to set Vasana down on the outside, have her come around through the door, and then Harmas, the other guy, flies straight, because rune spells last like 15 minutes, so they got lots of flight time. He flies down from the inside and addresses the guy, "You stole our cattle, we want it back," and that kind of thing. Well, as he starts flying down, obviously Danikos is going to notice something, so he looks up and he casts a demoralize on him. That's a spell that causes him to be fearful and to fly away. So he flies away. But as he's flying away, Vasana comes around the corner and engages and attacks. But Danikos hasn't had the 3 rounds I was anticipating him doing spell preparation to what's the word they use, to buff himself up. And so he readies himself and casts protection on himself, but without, even with the armor stuff, he didn't have many issues. His big thing was his offense, because he normally casts the blade sharp, which gives him plus 15% to hit on with his sword, and then he'll cast fanaticism, which actually doubles his combat scores, but he can't defend. And so you do all this buff stuff. He's got protection on, he's got blade sharp on, he's got fanaticism, and he's hitting it like 150%. So he's critting on like a 7, and he's got a special on 30%. So he'll do a slash on 30% of the time. Now, that's amazing. And that's how you get really damaged, by doing specials and crits and stuff. So that's how the scenario is kind of designed for him to be this badass. But Vasana gets in there, and she's just using her broadsword, and she's got a damage bonus because of her strength and stuff. So, but it's enough to get through this armor, because it doesn't have a lot of protection up. And he whacks her a couple times. Harmas comes back, and then Vasana takes the guy out. So he's unconscious on the ground, bleeding. And they decide, well, we need to keep this guy alive so we can question him and that kind of stuff. And so they give him a healing potion, and they cast healing spells onto it, becomes positive in his hit points. And he starts screaming out, "A dreamy, save me!" And they're trying to, what in the world's going on? And the skull on the altar starts to rise. All the bones in front knit together with these vines that come up out of the altar, and then the cow skin cloak kind of comes over to it, and it becomes this critter. And the critter's head turns and looks at them. And it's supposed to take 2 more rounds, but I hadn't first up on this very well, so the next round they start hearing a Dreamy's voice, and so they think this critter thing is a Dreamy, and they attack it. they have one of the dream elves show up, which casts an enthrall on one of the players, and so the player becomes enthralled with the dreamy and gets a temporary passion for her. So there's a little discussion there back and forth because he doesn't want to do all these good things. He wants to get his cows back. He wants to do all this stuff, but he's got this passion for the demon goddess to help protect her and take care of her and keep the cows. So it became a very interesting discussion back and forth between the players and me as a GM trying to feed them information on how they can resolve the situation. But they end up making the deal, taking half the cattle, and since the shaman's there, he volunteers to be the caretaker for the earth demon goddess to make sure she gets her sacrifices and that kind of thing. That's how we ended it up. It's pretty cool. It took us a couple nights, but it was fun.